And it has to do with the fact that when it comes to quarantine and also isolation, it is an issue where an individual or a group of individuals would have been placed in that type of situation by the state authority on public health, who happens to be the chief medical officer. And it is done in the interest of protecting the health and safety of the public at large, while at the same time ensuring that you give the affected individuals the opportunity to recover from their illness or to be isolated during a period wherein a determination is being made as to the nature of illness, especially if it's something that is infectious. As a result of that, the Ministry of Labor, in collaboration with the Legal Department through the Office of the Attorney General, is currently approaching that particular matter. And as a matter of fact, we would have, over the course of the last 24 hours, been preparing a document which would be applicable to the Social Security Act and also falls in line with the provisions of the Quarantine Act, the Public Health Act, and of course, by no means least, the COVID-19 Control and Prevention Act. And essentially what it states is that if an individual is away from work by order of being ill or by a state authority, then that person is to be considered as being out of the realm of work, decent work that they would normally have. And then when we take into account the Social Security Act, especially that particular portion, the section escapes me now, but it speaks to the payment of sickness benefit. That particular part of the legislation also speaks to that as well. So I say all of this to say, Lesroy, that the fact is that once someone is in quarantine or isolation, as long as they're being gainfully employed and covered under the Social Security Act by virtue of being registered and by virtue of having regular contributions being paid in by the employer on his or her behalf, that person's period of quarantine and isolation will be considered to that extent. In terms of the first part of your question, though, in terms of employers looking at it as time for which the employee should not be penalized, we are hoping that that is the point at which the employer, through their own humanity and their own regard for the public health regulations, would recognize that these persons, these workers, are not in isolation or in quarantine because of something frivolous that they would have done on their own. And as such, however, it also then means that the requisite paperwork between the Ministry of Health and the Social Security Administration would have to be put in place to justify that with the full involvement of the employer.